If you talk about biotechnology, there are a lot of techniques that are involved in exploring the natural resources, in understanding natural resources, how to effectively use them. So biotechnology people, they work on the natural matter, the biological matter, but with the technological support. So they might need to work most of the time on a research-based environment. They should have hard working ethics. They should be challenged. They will be challenged most of the time with some kind of data given to them. They have to go for and at times some possible results. So it's very effective job. They have to be very hard working. There is also biological scientists who work on many different areas. There are people who work on tissues, which is anatomists. There is also people who work about life underwater, which is aquatic biologists. Agronomists who work about crop production. Bioinformatics who work about information from a database like. Cytology who works about cells, as biochemistry, biophysics. Curator who works in a museum. Ecologist, entomologist who works on pests. Genetics, geneticists, microbiologists. Ornithology who works about birds. There is also physiciculturists who works about fish culture. There is mycology who work about control fungi. There is also Indian Council of Medical Research who work in this area effectively. And there are also plenty of fields available if you want to study. There is chemical science, biological engineering, chemical engineering. There are plenty of interdisciplines which are available. For this you might need to end up writing combined entrance exam for MTech or MSc or MSc Agri or even MBSc, which is veterinary sciences. So you might need to end up in, or you might like molecular biology or agriculture biotechnology. If you talk about genetic scientists, these people study about hereditary. They find out, okay, there are some resemblances here or there are some differences here. They normally spend their time in laboratory analyzing things over different microscopes. People who end up in this area need to have a long educational caliber, and also there's a very strong mathematical, analytical skills there, because they have to look for new things in the area. If you talk about biochemistry, they are concerned about chemistry in the biological process. It is more of a research area. It can be applied into medical, agricultural and nutritional fields. Normally the work of these biochemists is in a very clean, conducive environment in laboratories. It's again a research blended area. You may need to work for long periods of time before you can come up with any conclusion. If you talk about microbiology and bioinformatics, microbiologist talks about microscopic organisms. So you normally works in labs or research labs, maybe in hospitals as well. You can also work in some pharmaceutical firms or maybe in understanding food and beverages. You should have very strong inclination in terms of research. You should also have inclination to hard work and look for small things there. Bioinformatics is where you use computer to benefit your job like. Next is anthropology. Here we talk about the development or evolution of human. This is a very long area because you have to work on various fields like. You have to make a lot of field trips and then determine which is interesting to you. And you should be someone who is interested to know about the history. You should be someone who likes to know what's happening here, what is the difference between one community and another, and so on and so forth. And there are studies about archaeology is there are studies about anthropology, there's also studies on microbiology, biochemistry, bioinformatics, and there are plenty of other fields that exist. Let's talk about home science and home economics. Home science, this talks about how to make your life, your home life or a family life in a better way. So normally the working environment is different. People who learn home science, they might end up in some schools, for example, or they can be at aircraft cabins, they can be in a textile industry, they can be in hospitals, hotels, research organizations, maybe in some marketing fields. So it's a very broad area, so depending upon the area you work, you might need to have specific personality in yourself. And there are plenty of courses that exist in the area of home science, dietetics and nutrition, child development, textile designing, toys design, dressmaking, food analysis, diploma in dyeing and plating, diploma in food and nutrition, diploma in early childhood care and education. BSc Home Science is there. There is postgraduate diploma in dietetics, diploma in dietetics and public health nutrition, MSc Applied Nutrition. Let's talk about nutritionists and dietitians. These are people who talk about these are things you should eat, these are things you should avoid so that you can have a healthy life, to keep your life safer for young people, for elderly, for sick people, for a nursing mother, for a sportsman, for example. So those who are health conscious, everybody is health conscious. So that becomes necessary in your life. These people, they work in hospitals, they have a very regular working schedule. Sometimes they might need to work even in weekends. And they should be very much interested about diet. They should be interested in science of each and every food we take. They might end up in food industry where they talk about nutrition values. They might also end up in clinical dietitian tasks. Food technology, this is an area where they talk about processing of foods, how to make food, how to make sure the food is packed properly, nicely, looks attractive. So it's also a broader area. People work in offices, people work in classrooms, people work in laboratories, people work in hotels and different places. There is an institute called Central Food Technological Research Institute at Mysore, which is a popular one. In the case of food processing, you can end up in food technology. You might do BA, BTech, BSc in home science or food technology. There is BSc zoology and you can end up in MS in fisheries. You might look for sugar technology. You can end up as nutritionists or dietitians. There is also task of processing and preserving the food. There is an institute of Central Institute of Fisheries Education in Mumbai. Next one, let us talk about forensic sciences. Here people look for evidences. We look for physical evidences present inside some criminals or some activity, some suspected activity. So someone who want to end up in forensic, we should have very scientific, analytic and systematic thought. We should be very curious to learn, look for every small detail in it. They might end up in forensic ontology, which is more towards dental research. Forensic pathology, which discusses about cause of somebody's death. Forensic toxicology, forensic psychiatry, forensic fingerprint experts who talk about analyze fingerprints. And there is also criminology courses available. There is BSc criminology, BSc forensic sciences, and there are plenty of other courses available. Some institutions, one of those institutes which conduct these kind of courses is Dharwad University in Karnataka. Horticulture, this is an area which talk about cultivation of plants, talk about vegetable cultivation, and to have maintaining gardens, for example, nurseries, to have greenhouses and the environments of an orchards or plantations. People who work in this are mainly in charge for maintaining public gardens, maybe official lawns like. They should like greenery so much, they should love plants like, so that it can make it look nicer or appear nicer. Environment studies, it talks about the environment. How does plants, how does human, how does animals, how does pollution affects the environment. So these people normally work in field as well as the offices. They might need to survey different places. You have to go to different sites and survey them effectively. And they should have very strong inclination to protect the environment. This is important. And they might work in land conservation or pollution management. Let us talk about dairy and poultry farming. This is an area where people talk about clean environments of dairy or poultry. So people have to work in clean environments. So someone have to analyze them to find out whether there is some health problem in the dairy or in the poultry you are having. And you can learn many things in this area, which is like BSc or BTech in dairy technology. There is an institute called National Dairy Research Institute at Warnal in Haryana. And there is also courses on dairy and poultry farming. Let's talk about fisheries. Fisheries, you talk about how to set up fish breeding areas or fish farms, for example, how to hatch them, how to get things ready. So normally you need to work outdoors, and you might be you might need to study courses in the area of aquatic biology, fishery sciences, capture and culture fisheries, forestry and wildlife. Here we talk about forests. We analyze forest fires, the reason of forest fire. This job requires you to work long hours in the forest, so you should be physically, mentally strong enough, and you should have very high interest in wildlife and conservation. You should also have interest in environment. And there is also Indian Forestry Service, which is by UPSC. It's applicable only to science and engineering graduates.